Before we dive into today's chilling tale, if you're a fan of suspenseful stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and join us for more unsettling narratives. This one takes me back to my junior year of high school, last day of school. For most, that meant freedom, sunshine, and the sweet taste of summer. But for us, for my core group of friends, it was always about pushing boundaries, finding the edge of boredom and leaping right over it. And this last day? It was tailor-made for mischief. It was a day that felt wrong. From the moment you woke up. Stormy, dark, ominous clouds hung low, pressing down on the town like a heavy lid. The kind of day that made you want to curl up inside, not celebrate the end of the school year. Originally, the plan had been the beach. Last day, senior ditch day spirit, even for juniors. But the weather had other ideas. Beach was a no-go. So, we, being us, needed a new adventure, something equally inappropriate. That's when someone, I honestly can't remember who, threw out the idea of the old Hawthorne Elementary School. Hawthorne, abandoned for a decade, maybe more, 10 years, at least, of collecting dust and shadows. Rumor had it, they were finally going to tear it down by the end of the year, turn the land into condos or something equally bland and uninspired. But for now, it stood, a silent, decaying monument to forgotten childhoods. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. We were in, no cameras, or so we thought, in a building that old. And on a day like this, with the sky spitting rain and thunder rumbling in the distance, no chance anyone would be patrolling, watching, caring. So, after lunch period, we bailed. Early dismissal, senior privilege for juniors who were bold enough to just leave. Eddie, bless his reckless heart, already had his license and, more importantly, his beat-up Honda Civic. He was our designated getaway driver, our partner in crime. We piled into his car, a motley crew of teenage rebellion. There was me, Tommy, the narrator of this little escapade. Mark, the quiet one, always observing, always a little bit on edge. Chris, the joker, the one who could usually lighten any mood, even a stormy, abandoned school mood. And Eddie, of course, the instigator, the one with the car and, as we soon discovered, the baseball bat. Eddie drove, rain lashing against the windshield, wipers working overtime. Hawthorne Elementary was tucked away in the middle of a residential neighborhood, not on any main roads, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. Which, of course, most people weren't. Who looks for an abandoned elementary school? We pulled into the back parking lot, overgrown and forgotten. Bushes, thick and untamed, clawed at the sides of the car. Trees, branches heavy with rain, leaned over us, casting the lot in deeper shadow. The school building itself loomed on two sides, brick walls stained with years of neglect, windows dark and empty eye sockets staring out at the stormy sky. It was perfect, perfectly creepy, perfectly deserted. "Park here," Mark said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Behind these bushes. No one will see us." Eddie nodded, maneuvering the Civic deeper into the overgrown lot until we were swallowed by the green, hidden from the street, from the world. We sat for a moment, the rain drumming on the roof of the car, the silence thick with anticipation and a nervous thrill. "All right," Eddie said finally, breaking the silence. He reached into the back, rummaging around. Time to make an entrance. He pulled out a baseball bat. A real, honest-to-goodness baseball bat, wood, worn smooth with use. Where he got it, why he had it in his trunk, I didn't ask. Eddie was full of surprises, mostly of the slightly illegal variety. "Seriously, Eddie?" Chris asked, his voice a mix of nervous laughter and genuine concern. "A baseball bat? You're gonna smash a window?" "Relax, Chris, why boy," Eddie grinned, a flash of teeth in the gloom. "School's getting torn down anyway, right? What's one broken window gonna matter? Besides," he winked, "how else we gonna get in? Front doors locked tighter than Fort Knox." He wasn't wrong. The place wasn't boarded up, not exactly. Just locked down. Doors bolted, windows latched. But windows could be persuaded. Eddie got out of the car, the rain plastering his hair to his forehead. He walked to the side of the school, the bat held loosely in his hand. We watched him, nervously huddled in the car, the sound of the rain deafening in the sudden silence. Even through the pouring rain, I was terrified someone in one of the houses across the fence would hear the smashing sound. This was a residential neighborhood, after all. Houses were close. Too close. Eddie stopped in front of a window, one of the classroom windows facing the parking lot. He took a breath, hefted the bat, and swung. The sound was sharp, shockingly loud in the stormy quiet. Crack. Glass shattered, a spiderweb of cracks spreading across the pane. Eddie swung again and again, each crack echoing, each shattering shard sending a jolt of adrenaline through me. We watched, a mixture of fear and exhilaration bubbling up inside us. Nervous laughter bubbled up from Chris, quickly stifled. After a few good swings, Eddie stepped back, the window now a jagged hole in the brick wall. He used the bat to push away the larger pieces of glass still clinging to the frame, clearing a space just big enough to climb through. Then, he waved us over, a silent summons to join him in the forbidden. One by one, we scrambled out of the car, rain soaking us instantly, and ran to the broken window. Eddie went first, disappearing into the darkness inside. Then Mark, then Chris. I hesitated for a moment, the rain plastering my face, the wind whipping my hair around my eyes. Was this really a good idea? Breaking into an abandoned school? On a day like this? But the lure of the forbidden, the thrill of the trespass, was too strong to resist. Besides, Eddie was right. They were tearing it down anyway. What was one broken window in the grand scheme of things? My teenage logic, always eager to justify recklessness, won out. I took a deep breath and climbed through the window, into the dark unknown of Hawthorne Elementary. The window we'd broken into was indeed a classroom window. 4th or 5th grade, judging by the size of the desks, the faded, childish decorations still clinging to the walls. Construction paper cutouts of pumpkins, ghosts of Halloween's past, drooped sadly from the bulletin board. A worn, alphabet frieze circled the top of the room, letters faded and peeling. It was surreal to be inside what was once a vibrant, bustling classroom, a place of learning, of laughter, of childhood noise, now reduced to this. Nothing but a cold, dark, abandoned room, collecting dust, waiting for the wrecking ball. The sounds of thunder and lightning outside, closer now, more insistent, added to the surreal feeling. The air inside was heavy, damp, and carried a faint, musty smell, the scent of decay and forgotten things. No lights on, of course. Power to the place was likely cut completely years ago. We'd anticipated that, though. Flashlights on our phones. Modern teenage explorers, armed with smartphones and a baseball bat. Pathetic, really. But in the moment, it felt adventurous. The phone flashlights, weak beams cutting through the gloom, were plenty to get around, to see something. Even without them, it wasn't completely pitch black in there. Some light, gray and diffused, still managed to creep in through the rain-streaked windows, enough to make out shapes, outlines, the ghostly remnants of a classroom. We started to explore, venturing out of the classroom and into the hallway. Traversing the hallways, room to room, each classroom was the same, a mirror image of the first, filled with desks and chairs, frozen in time, waiting for children who would never return. Desks scarred with initials, doodles, the ghosts of teenage boredom. Chairs askew, knocked over, as if the students had just gotten up and left, abruptly, mid-lesson, never to come back. We were all 4 in the same classroom, a kindergarten room, judging by the brightly colored, slightly terrifying, construction paper animals adorning the walls, when we heard it. A sound, faint at first, but distinct, echoing down the hallway, carrying into the silent classroom. A scraping sound? Like something being dragged across the floor. We all went silent, instinctively. Phone flashlights snapped off, plunging us into near-total darkness. Only the faint gray light from the windows remained, enough to make out shapes, but not details. We stood frozen, listening, hearts pounding in the silence. The scraping sound stopped. Silence again, heavy and expectant. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, a stark, momentary brilliance that bleached out the shadows, then plunged us back into darkness. Thunder rumbled, closer now, shaking the old building. We waited, breath held, listening for something, anything. But there was only the sound of the rain, drumming against the windows, the wind howling outside, the creaks and groans of the old building settling around us. After a long, tense moment, Chris finally spoke, his voice a nervous whisper. "Probably just the wind," he said. "Old building, you know, settling." We slowly, hesitantly, accepted that it was probably nothing. Just the wind, just the old building, just our imaginations running wild in the darkness. We switched our flashlights back on, weak beams cutting through the gloom, and continued on, exploring room to room. Our wet shoes squeaked on the linoleum floors, each step echoing too loudly in the silence. Sneaking around wasn't really possible, not in this old building. Every footstep, every breath, seemed amplified, echoing in the emptiness. A lot of things in the school were visibly decaying. Paint peeling, plaster crumbling, water stains spreading across the ceilings. You could really tell no one had stepped foot in here in ages. As we neared the corner of the hallway, the end of the kindergarten wing, I turned around, just to glance back down the way we'd come. And I saw it. At the doorway of one of the classrooms, the last kindergarten room on the left, it looked like something was sticking out from the doorway. Something white, vaguely human-shaped. "Guys," I whispered, stopping, my flashlight beam fixed on the doorway. "Guys, look." My friends stopped too, turning, their flashlight beams joining mine, illuminating the doorway. Whatever it was partially hidden behind the doorframe, just a sliver of white visible, sticking out from the darkness of the classroom. It looked like an arm or a leg, something pale and vaguely limb-like. We stared, frozen, our flashlight beams dancing nervously on the doorway. And then, as we watched, as we focused our light, whatever that thing was, that thing we were seeing, retracted, slowly, deliberately, pulled back into the darkness of the classroom, vanished. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Then, a collective whispered, "Oh, shit," from all four of us, almost in unison. Oh shit, something had been there. Something watching us. And then, we ran. Not a coordinated run, not a planned retreat. Just panic. Pure, unadulterated teenage panic. We turned and bolted, running blindly down the intersecting hallway, away from the doorway, away from whatever we'd seen. We didn't speak, didn't look back, just ran. Our sneakers pounding on the linoleum, our breath coming in ragged gasps. We didn't stop running until we were far enough away, until we'd reached a different wing of the school, a hallway lined with smaller doors, lower ceilings. Kindergarten wing. We'd somehow stumbled into the kindergarten wing. We stopped, leaning against the wall, chests heaving, lungs burning. Still no lights, still only the faint gray light filtering through the rain-streaked windows. And then, we heard another sound, echoing from down the hallway, from the direction we'd just fled. Another scraping sound? No. This time, it was different. This time, it was footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, echoing in the empty hallway. Footsteps, approaching. We weren't alone. We weren't the only ones in the abandoned school. But who else could be in here? The place was locked up, sealed tight. Every light in the building was off. Who would be here? And why? The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, kept coming, closer, closer. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the adrenaline of the run. We had to hide. Now, we scrambled to the first classroom door we could find. A kindergarten classroom, small desks, brightly colored posters, even more unsettling in their cheerfulness now. Chris fumbled with the doorknob, managed to get the door open, and we piled inside, shoving ourselves into the small, brightly colored space. Chris slammed the door shut behind us, and we stood pressed against it, backs to the wall, hearts hammering, listening. Silence. For a moment, just silence, broken only by our own ragged breathing, the drumming of the rain, the rumble of distant thunder. We waited in silence, flashlights off again, plunged back into near darkness. The rain was still coming down hard, the wind howling outside, thunder and lightning crashing every 20 seconds or so, the storm raging around the abandoned school, trapping us inside. Suddenly, a sound. Close now. Right outside the classroom door. A click. The doorknob. Clicking. Turning. Slowly. Deliberately. Someone was opening the door. Someone was coming in. The door creaked open, slowly, eerily, pushed from the outside, swinging inward, revealing the hallway beyond. Pitch black hallway. Darkness swallowing the light from the classroom windows. We didn't see anyone at the doorway. Just darkness. And the open door, creaking slowly in the wind. We all tried our best to stay quiet, to be invisible, pressed against the back wall of the kindergarten classroom, holding our breath, frozen in fear. And then, slowly, hesitantly, something appeared through the doorway. A shape, dark against darker darkness. The vague shape of a head? We all saw it. A dark shape, just inside the doorway, at head height. Motionless. Watching us. Waiting. And then, another flash of lightning, brilliant, blinding, illuminating the hallway, the doorway, the classroom. And in that brief, stark flash of light, we saw what it was. It was in fact someone's head, a human head, pale, gaunt, framed by dark, stringy hair, looking into the classroom, directly at us. Eyes, dark and hollow, fixed on us, motionless, lifeless, peering around the doorway, just the head, nothing else visible in the darkness beyond. Panic, pure, unreasoning terror, seized me. I stumbled forward, towards the doorway, towards the head, words tumbling out in a rush of fear and apology. "We're sorry," I stammered, my voice cracking. "We're leaving. We're just leaving now. We didn't mean to, we're going." The head at the doorway didn't move, didn't react, didn't speak. Motionlessly, almost lifelessly, it just peered around the doorway, those dark, hollow eyes fixed on us, unblinking. Eddie, bless his reckless, stupid courage, had had enough. Do you work here?" Eddie asked, his voice shaking, but surprisingly loud, cutting through the silence. Are you supposed to be here?" No response, just the head, still, silent, watching. Eddie swore, a low, muttered curse under his breath. He'd had it. Clearly. He turned, fumbling with the window latch, the small kindergarten window, too small, too high, but it was the only way out. He struggled to unlock it, fingers clumsy with adrenaline, with fear. "Tommy, bat," Eddie hissed, without looking back. "Give me the bat." He needed leverage to pry the window open. I fumbled for the bat, still clutched in my hand, and passed it to him, the wood cold and slick with rain. Eddie jammed the bat into the window frame, prying, straining, muscles bunching in his arms. The window creaked, groaned, then, with a final, wrenching sound, popped open, just enough to slide, just enough to squeeze through. Eddie didn't hesitate. He scrambled onto the windowsill, wriggled through the narrow opening, and dropped to the ground outside, landing with a muffled thud in the rain-soaked grass. Mark went next, then Chris, each of them scrambling through the window, disappearing into the storm. I was last. Before I crawled out, before I plunged back into the rain, I looked back one more time, at the head at the doorway. Still there. Still watching. Motionless. Lifeless. Those dark, hollow eyes fixed on me. I shuddered, a cold wave of fear washing over me. Then, I scrambled through the window as quickly as I could, fear lending me unnatural speed. Fearing with every fiber of my being that I'd hear footsteps behind me, running, chasing, that the head would detach itself from the doorway and come after me, grab my legs, drag me back into the darkness. But nothing, just the sound of the rain, the wind, the thunder, and my own ragged breathing. Once I was out, I ran. Ran like hell, ran to catch up with my friends, who were already booking it across the overgrown parking lot, back to Eddie's car, our sanctuary, our escape. We piled back into the Civic, Eddie fumbling with the keys, hands shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. He finally got it started, the engine sputtering to life, and we peeled out of the parking lot, tires spitting gravel, leaving Hawthorne Elementary behind, swallowed by the storm, by the shadows, by the mystery. We drove out of there in a hurry, didn't speak, didn't look back, didn't stop until we were miles away, safe, or at least safer, back in the familiar, brightly lit streets of our town. We never talked about it, not really. Not about what we saw or thought we saw in that doorway. We just buried it. Teenage bravado, teenage denial, teenage fear. We never went back. The building was torn down later that year, just like they said. Hawthorne Elementary, erased from the landscape, reduced to rubble and dust. The land, I heard, was turned into a park. A nice, sunny, open park with swings and slides and laughing children. No shadows there, no darkness, no creepy heads peering from doorways. We never got in trouble for breaking in. No one ever found out, or if they did, no one ever said anything. To this day, we have no idea what that was, what we saw in that doorway. Some kind of worker? Maybe. Though why they'd be lurking in the dark, in an abandoned school, on a stormy day, just watching, was beyond me. Just some random person? Homeless? Maybe. But the stillness, the silence, the way it just watched. It was unsettling. Extremely creepy behavior. Whoever, whatever it was. And to this day, whenever the sky turns dark, whenever the thunder rumbles, whenever the rain lashes against the windows, I still think of Hawthorne Elementary. And that head in the doorway, watching, waiting.